Welcome to the St. John the Baptist Orthodox Church's live stream webinar, Orthodox Life in Kenya, the Impact of Missions. Today's presentation, Response to Change, with Virginia Gathoni, Elayne Goldman, and Joel Pleban will start shortly. Hello, and welcome to the second of St. John the Baptist four-part live stream webinar, Orthodox Life in Kenya, the Impact of Missions. I'm your moderator, Andrew Likos, coming to you from my home in St. Augustine, Florida, where I'm the mission teams director of the Orthodox Christian Mission Center and a member of Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church. Last week in part one, we traveled to Nairobi where long-term missionary to Kenya, Dr. Bill Black, spoke to us about the effects of dependency. This talk is now posted on St. John's YouTube page, where you may view it at any time you wish, and we invite you to share it with others. Before we begin, we welcome you to share your questions with our presenters. You can email your questions to orthodoxkenya18@gmail.com. Again, that's orthodoxkenya18@gmail.com. We will address as many questions as time permits at the end of the presentations. Today, for part two, Response to Change, we will be bringing you presenters from our East Coast, our West Coast, and East Africa. They include Joe Pleban, a certified public accountant, a subdeacon, and a lifelong member of St. John the Baptist Carpatho-Russian Orthodox Church in Stratford, Connecticut. Joe served on an OCMC mission team and as a mission volunteer to Kenya. Joe will be speaking to us from his home in Stratford. We have Virginia Gathoni joining us from Nairobi, Kenya. She is a founding teacher of the St. Clement Primary School in Iriruta and also director of the Youth Mentorship Program for graduates of the St. Clement School. She also serves as a counselor for young women, young girls, and children. Virginia is a member of the Orthodox Church in Nairobi. And Elayne Goldman is joining us from her home in Portland, Oregon. Elayne served on multiple OCMC teams and also served as a volunteer in Kenya. She is one of the founding members of St. John the Baptist Greek Orthodox Church in Beaverton. She has a degree in counseling with an emphasis in vocational rehabilitation, helping people with disabilities, including adults and high school youth. Elayne is also the coordinator of this webinar series. I had the honor and privilege of serving with all three of our guests on an OCMC Orthodox mission team in 2017. Virginia was our host on our youth mentorship program at the St. Clement School. After their team experiences, Joel and Elayne decided to go back for a month-long mission volunteer service trip. It's a delight to be with you all. Today we will start with Subdeacon Joel. Joel, as you know, I've sent many teams and it's left an impression on many people's hearts. I know your trip in 2007 left quite an impression on your heart. What truly inspired you to return back to Kenya?
Oh, well, thank you, Andy. Your question on what inspired me to return. Let me start with the first trip. To keep a long story short, our first trip honestly came with a lot of what I would say. I saw the promotional videos and the presentations of the trip, and I decided, I could do that. So it was what about I could take away from the experience. But the return trip was from a different perspective. It was more of not what I could take away, but what I had to give. It was a reflection on the gifts and talents that I had to bring to the table. You may recall last week, Dr. Black's presentation, he emphasized the breaking of the giving cycle and instead the beginning of a teaching cycle. So the primary message here is to help Orthodox Christians and the churches in Kenya. The initial 2017 trip took us to the compound of the Metropolitan, which houses not only the St. Clement Primary School, which will be discussed in detail by our following speakers, but also Macarius Seminary and the Orthodox College of Africa. During our first visit to the college, the president of the college, who was Father Nicholas, made an offer to us to come back and teach at the college. I remembered that and hoped to come back sometime and offer some lessons on accounting. Unfortunately, due to scheduling and timing conflicts, we couldn't arrange that, but I wasn't ready to give up on the possibility of sharing my background in accounting. The opportunity came about when Archbishop Macarius opened up his seminary classrooms to us. You'll see on your screen the picture of the seminarian class from 2018, which is a good sizable group in front of the chapel at the seminary and in the compound. Words about the seminary. The seminary was the inspiration of Archbishop Macarius of the Third of Cyprus. He invited Macarius, the current archbishop, to come to Nairobi. Macarius went to his spiritual father, Sophronius, to tell him of the request of Macarius, where Sophronius instructed Macarius to go to Africa. Macarius was still a layman at the time. Now, Bishop Macarius would start to organize the seminary. Seminarians were accepted from many African countries, and there were up to 85 seminarians attending at the same time, along with the teachers who were African but learning abroad. They were also teaching those seminarians. Now it's getting more difficult to accept the candidates due to the economic challenges. His Eminence wanted to emphasize it's not only academic theology that's taught, but a love of the services. With more assistance, then more seminarian candidates can be accepted. One of the areas of expertise that I was able to bring with me to Kenya was experience in the profession of accounting, along with the knowledge of serving on a church board or other not-for-profit organizations. His Eminence assigned me to a daily lecture time slot at the seminary upon the return to Nairobi from our initial Western Kenyan mission trip. My class at the time was varied between 25 and 35 seminarians on any given night. My topics included a basic introduction to bookkeeping, the need for responsible management of funds, and the risks of fraud and theft in the church. You'll see on your screen a picture of the seminary library, which is where we held our classes. And I was able to present my lessons on the whiteboard there, where I would input the debits and the credits and the other exciting lessons of accounting. One interesting story, one night, the topic was fraud and theft, and I came up with a story from the United States. It was about a Connecticut priest who was dismissed from his role because of financial improprieties. I asked the class, does anybody here have any personal knowledge of experience of any theft or fraud? Imagine my surprise when half of the class raised their hand. I mean, that was pretty interesting. We ended up having a very dynamic conversation about the various risks that are involved and the potential lessons that could be learned by following good accounting principles. His Eminence was very enthusiastic with this class time and insisted on daily updates on the topics that we discussed. Every class came with this message: you will be the leaders of the Orthodox Church. People will look up to you and trust you. You need to know the responsibilities a priest has and be able to run your own church, and more importantly, to grow your church. And that's a common theme of what Elayne and I discussed at all of our lessons, was growing the church. As he mentioned, there have been many candidates coming to him, that's his Eminence, coming to him for entry into the seminary. The difficulties aren't finding candidates, it's being able to support them financially at the seminary. I find it very encouraging that the Orthodoxy spreads throughout Africa so that candidates come from all over the continent to be educated at this one and only Orthodox seminary in all of Africa. I was pleased to have the opportunity to become friends with the seminarians. They helped enhance my experience in Nairobi. My seminarian Silas would take me on walks through the neighborhoods, which further inspired me to someday return and find ways to assist those Orthodox Christians that live in the area slums. There are some things that really made impacts on Elayne. There are some things that really made impacts on me. This is something that I hope to be able to find some other way to help with when I return. Now, the native Africans serve the native population. As I mentioned before, that's of great value to these Orthodox Christians. The Orthodox Church is tolerant of local customs being intertwined with liturgical tradition. We saw that time and time and again at the churches that we visited. We saw funerals that featured clapping and dancing. We witnessed dancing during communion at liturgies, weddings with streamers, balloons, and parades. It was a great outpouring of joy. With the growing population and acceptance of Orthodoxy, there also came a demand for churches, for priests, and for buildings. So our 2019 mission took Elayne and I to Western Kenya and the towns and villages in the Kisumu and Kakamega region. Our mission was a unique experience. It was a process of identifying the talents Elayne and I brought over with us, then matching them up to the parishes that we visited. The western part of the country had a different demographic structure than the Nairobi region. The West is a collection of rural villages with highly densely populated centers that attract many individuals. Now, the parishes that we visited were generally consecrated in the 1990s or the 2000s by His Eminence. And many of those churches would be considered very humble by what we are exposed to in the West. Most are constructed of handmade bricks and tin roofs. You'll see on your screen a picture of St. Peter's Church with tin roofs and dirt floors. This was one of the very first churches that Elayne and I visited on our trip to the West. You'll see inside there's the altar on a simple table. But despite the fact that it's a simple table and a dirt floor and an unfinished brick wall with holes in the wall and a tin roof, this altar is just as significant as any big altar in any big Western cathedral. Now, the Orthodox churches quite often had a primary school, or the equivalent of a grade school attached to them. Being a society with a large youth population, a great number of children were always present at each liturgy we attended. The attendance of children at communion was a high priority, and they were always in line first and encouraged to take communion. And there were a lot of children that went to these parishes It was a lot of joy. It was always filled with children. You'll see our host, Father Athanasios, at the podium, and even when he's speaking, the children will approach him. It's very open and encouraging the children. And that's a lot of what our goal was and our mission work was centered around. Elayne and I began to develop the mission program that was directed at much of the youth. Our mission work had themes that prioritized growth and development of core Orthodox principles. We rarely had a planned agenda or a firm program structure. We worked off of our outlines, and we were at the mercy of where the wind took us. You could say that we would let God light the path for us. And our efforts were met with much enthusiasm and anticipation. Children are children, whether they're in North America or Africa, and issues and challenges with children have similar parallels. So Elayne and I were able to connect with the children in the Orthodox Church of Kenya, just as we would have in the United States. Older children often had more responsibilities. More responsibilities involve caring for or watching the younger children. And the younger children are like our younger children. They are filled with a desire for fun and activity, and they are curious. The younger children are very intimate, and I greatly enjoyed picking up children and carrying them around. This photo is from a funeral that Elayne and I went to at a church called St. James. It was just north of Nairobi. The woman being buried was a woman named Teresa. She was a freedom fighter from the 1960s. So her funeral was very well attended. There were a lot of people there. His Eminence took great joy in taking Elayne and myself to these big events. And he would always try to find room for us in the front rows so that we could get a very good view and experience the ceremony. Well, inevitably, and much to the frustration of His Eminence, I would tend to get up out of my seat after a while. I'd give it to I'd find a woman. There were a lot of women or elderly women that were standing, and I'd wander my way to the back of the church. And I would often find a mother holding their child. And unlike the United States, where a mother might be a little leery of a stranger walking up to them and taking their child, they were often all too glad to hand them off to me. And I took a lot of pleasure in relieving those tired mothers, where I knew I was holding their children and empowered with the knowledge that I was holding the future of Orthodoxy in my arms. I'll share with you a few other key moments with the children, either at the schools. You'll see the primary school in the background that Virginia is going to talk a lot about. I like to stop at this picture. This was taken at an orphanage in southern Kenya, just in the outskirts of the Kilimanjaro region on the border of Tanzania. And I love showing this picture at my local OCMC presentations when I knew my mom was in the audience, because I love telling the group how close my mother came to getting a new grandchild when I made my way home from Kenya. A new 2-year-old grandchild, you really grow attached to these children. What a sweetheart. Some other pictures with the children. At the Maasai tribe, Elayne's going to spend some time talking about the great experiences we had there. Elayne and I would on a daily basis encounter children who would have different challenges than we were used to seeing in the United States. So we would adjust our teaching programs accordingly. One lesson we emphasized was the importance of picking up and continuing the work of the parents and grandparents in the church. The children continued the integration of their local custom within the traditions of the Orthodox churches. Singing, dancing, drum playing, poetry, storytelling were very popular. Now here's an interesting story. This was one of our lessons Elayne and I gave at a church named St. John's in Mumias, which is in the far northwest corner of Kenya. It was about 2.5, 3 hours outside of Kisumu, not too far from the Ugandan border. These children came to our presentation, and Elayne and I, as always, would normally need to improvise when we need to come up with a lesson. Well, we noticed in this case that there was a pile of bricks at the back of the church. So our lesson today was on leadership. We told all the students to pick up a brick, bring them outside and build a building. And you can imagine with the lack of direction, what a unorganized pile of bricks we found. So Elayne would then assign one of the students to be the leader. Well, then the leader's job was to instruct the other children on how to build a building. And after the proper instruction, we started to get a foundation put together, as you see in the picture. And that's important because the lesson that we're also teaching the children is that someday they're going to be building their own church. So they're going to need leaders. They're going to need people to organize the building structure. One more story from our trip. This was at the St. Tabitha Orphanage, also in the West. Coincidentally, this was exactly 1 year ago today, November 19th, 2019. So the lesson here was on teamwork and trust. So there was a pig pen over the side of the orphanage building, and we assigned one student to be the leader. The task was to get all of the students across the pig pen. We found some boards, some planks, stretched them across the pig pen, and through a series of positive communication and encouragement, holding hands, all of the students made their way across. And that would be considered a great success. Again, hopefully a good lesson in working together, a lesson that we could use here in the United States just as much as when we were in Kenya. Of course, there were times when we were a little stuck on where to go next. We were always able to fall back on our common Orthodox background. Elayne's going to spend some time talking about some great moments that we had in the Nandi region, which is further west than east. We spent some days there. And our fourth Sunday, we spent the liturgy at a very small, humble church. There weren't room for any more than 4 or 5 rows of benches, but it was packed with people. And again, during His Eminence's sermon, I walked outside with the older children. Now, I couldn't speak Swahili, they couldn't speak English, but it took us about 10 minutes of sign language and facial expressions to develop some activities and some games. We ran around for a good 20 minutes. And of course, you could see they also enjoyed having their picture taken. So a lot of happiness. And remembering the challenge of integrating our Orthodox faith with the challenge of everyday life is present everywhere, whether it's the United States or in Kenya. Our theme, response to change, is one that applies to all Orthodox Christians, whether in Kenya or somewhere else in the world. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't spend a couple seconds talking about my favorite African dish. This is mandazi. This was introduced to me by the children at the orphanage, and it's a donut type of food. It went really well with the honey in the morning. It was a wonderful, wonderful breakfast. Elayne and I learned that a key component to successful work is not necessarily preparation and structure, but its flexibility. Strong knowledge of our core Orthodox values is the foundation for a successful mission trip. We would keep the messages short and direct and to the point to maximize our impact. Grow your church. Orthodoxy was always a common link that we had with whomever we were visiting and speaking to. Now, Virginia, you've had a great amount of experience in working with the youth of Nairobi. What changes can you tell us and what responses have you experienced in the church?
Okay, thank you, Joel. Orthodox Church respond to the need of the people in Kenya by going deeper to the cause of the problem or the challenge and support according to its ability. I'm coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya, and with the blessings of His Eminence, Archbishop Macarius of Kenya, I'm going to talk about the response to change in Kenya in reference to my experience in St. Clement for the last 18 years. Next. We have different gifts, and we also have different ways to serve God. Each person has a vital role in serving Christ, and our role is to cultivate the gifts that God has given us. And when we use them to serve humanity in His name, then we'll have found our special role in the church and the society. Next. We're going to see St. Clement on how it was 10 years ago and how it has developed. It has a African map on the classroom wall that the children normally use as a teaching aid when they are in the school and learning about their continent. Play the video, please.
Virginia, I can't play the video because it wasn't shared.
Next. I'm going to, the background of the school is that Greek Orthodox Church in 2001, besides giving spiritual support to the community, it extended to give hope to the hopeless. In collaboration with the priests and the parishioners, they identified the problems in literacy level, poverty, and illness. In Yezemenes, Archbishop Macarius started a feeding program to feed the orphans and the vulnerable children. Next. In 2002, feeding program changed to a philanthropic kindergarten school, which later grew to an elementary school that supports 300 children every year. And these children receive holistic support from the church, spiritually, psychological assistance, social, emotional, and physical support. Next. During school holidays, these children do not get meals in their homes. And so getting a cup of tea and a snack makes them smile with the hope that school will open soon. And taking a meal in their homes is once in a day, which is not always guaranteed. So when they get a cup of tea, they were very grateful, going to visit their teachers and getting a cup of tea after getting a story during the holiday. Next. All day without play make Jack a dull boy. And these boys, looking back to their homes, they do not get space to play football, all get a chance to interact as a group because some of them lives in slums. And when they are in school, they were able to play. And there are some of these children who nurtured their talent in football, and they are even at their youth or at their age at this moment, they are still earning through football activities. Next. The school normally supports these children spiritually by going to church every morning before breakfast, and they pray together. This is the time that we start the school. After this church was completed, the children were growing, and the school has been enrolling many children from the community, and they were enjoying and learning a lot as they get the spiritual meal every day in the school area. Next. Next. These are children currently after getting all the support, and they normally get uniform whereby they are able to smile and to have the equality that you cannot know who is an orphan, who has come from different challenged family because they come from destitute families, in a way that sometimes when they come to school, they feel not able to fit because of their challenges and their way of dressing. And when they get their school uniform, mostly they feel loved, and they are able to be equalized in the school, and they learn at peace. Next. Sharing a meal in school has made them feel comfortable, and they have grown. When they are admitted, some of them were having some malnutrition, but after getting the balanced diet meal in the school, 2 hot meals in a day has made them grow healthy, and the changes could be seen, and their smiling face could tell more, always tells more as they come and share meals in our school. Next. The first group that was enrolled in 2002, when we started the school, they graduated in 2011, and majority of them were supported by His Eminence in their high school education, and they went to Nandi in one school that is under the sponsorship of His Eminence, Macarius Boys High School in Nandi. And even after the high school, His Eminence has been supporting them even to the colleges. This is our first class, the one that we started with them in 2002. Next. Focusing on their background, and they completed their high school education level in 2015. We realized that they had a challenge in transition, and the church organized a seminar that invited them and shared with them the challenges they have encountered in the high school, and we were to help them. Our aim was to help them on how they can move peaceably and comfortably to the colleges. And so we organized a seminar for them, and our aim was to assist them through transition. But after 2 days seminar, we realized that the St. Clement children, because of their background, require life skill support to assist them to cope with the challenges they may encounter even after being under the school in Orthodox school, in Orthodox church, sorry. Next. Next, please. Next. This is the same group. The second day of the seminar. Why mentorship? These children are living in an environment surrounded with violence of all kinds: physical violence, emotional and sexual violence. Drug and substance abuse in their neighborhood is a routine to the neighboring people. Alcoholism and anti-sex behaviors that lead to teenage pregnancies. And so lacking of coping skills makes them become victims of the situation. Next. So mentorship program is to reach and empower these children for a positive mindset, to equip them with the skills and knowledge so as to cope with the challenges effectively. And this program targets children from age 12, those ones that are completing the primary education, and those ones that are in high school, and even those ones that are in colleges, so as to bring them together and share their challenges, get assistance, equip them with the skills that can help them to meet or to cater for their challenges. And in 2006, the program started with the primary school children and those high school. Under the name of Today's Child, Tomorrow's World. Investing in our child today brings the change we want tomorrow in the world. And so the program, we called it, it is known as Today's Child, Tomorrow's World. Next. His Eminence Archbishop Makari has been supportive and encouraging these children to focus on their potential and talent, and he looks all the way possible to support these children and to equip them with the word of wisdom every time we invite them. And he normally extends or go further to look for more people that can come to support the program to help these children focus on their abilities than their weakness or the challenges they encounter in their families, on their family's background. Next. This is our first team that we had in 2015. They were able to ask for help to continue sharing their experiences with the children that are growing, that are behind them, so as to learn from them. And after a 1 year training for trainers, they were able to graduate, and you could have seen His Eminence awarding them certificates to encourage them that they have qualified to work together with the facilitators in assisting in the program, as they were willing also to work with the facilitators. Next. His Eminence working closer with the children made them open their hearts and share their experiences. Some grasped the skills very fast and felt they can also work with other people. And with his interest to support them, he invited friends from Orthodox Christian Mission Center, who sent a team of volunteers that supported in facilitating in 2007, which made them also to feel motivated. Next. They led in discussion in the group work, and the experience they have from their country motivated these people to share and to open up on their experiences in their home area or in their childhood experiences, and felt that through the sacrificial effort of this group from OCMC, they can also make it in life. So they felt motivated, and they have been sharing, and we could see in the school academic results that they were able to open up even in writing. Next. These volunteers from Orthodox Christian Mission Center have really helped these children to focus on their life in different perspectives. And they have been sharing a lot, and they have also helped in the facilitations. And this mission team have really supported the program with materials, long-term and short-term materials. In short-term, I mean the materials that we've been using since they joined us in 2017. They have been in support, and also they have supported us in long-term materials like computer projector, which helps even those young mentors to facilitate in confidence, because they have the technological support. And they have also supported the program, even reaching to other churches and children orphanage. As we went in 2019 with the Elayne and Joel in Western Kenya, and we were able to meet children in orphanage, and they shared their experience or their background that was very touching from the Nandi and other areas that they have even never met people who are going closer to them with the love that was shown by these volunteers. Next. The young mentors are using those projector, and they were not able to start as facilitators, but co-facilitators. But with the materials, they were able to co-facilitate well, and they have really improved in that. This is through the impact or the experience they shared with the team that had come from the Orthodox Christian Mission. Next. The materials that we were given by the Orthodox Christian Mission has also helped us in the outdoor activities, and the young mentors were able also to conduct the outdoor activities through the ideas they shared with the team that have visited us for the last 3 years, 2018 and 2017. Next. They developed the confidence, and now they are able to be part of the organizing and facilitating the program in the last 2 years. However, this year we were not able to have it, but they had already planned for the whole year the activities and the materials they have been preparing. So this confidence, and this student that is here is one of the students who was in 2003 and has nurtured his potential and his talent, and now is a leader of the young mentors and is confidently ready to reach children or the youth in the community and encouraging them that coming from a poor background does not mean you cannot make it in life, because he is a refugee and has been working towards achieving his goal regardless of his challenges and background experiences that were very touching and very painful during the time he came to Kenya. Next. This is at the time of the children of primary school that were learning on how to deal with their changes and the physical changes and how they can be able to cope with their life in high school, as they have been closer to their parents and closer to the school and they were fearing to go out and meet the challenges in the high school. But through mentorship program, they have acquired the skills that has helped them to be able to go to high school. And so next, the program has been able to reach over 500 children and the youth. And due to the demand, we have been also been able to facilitate life skill sessions through the local radio for the people who cannot manage to come to St. Clement can get the skills even from their home. In that, we have rescued and prevented many children from abuse and child trafficking. And in 2018, the team that came to visit us were able also to join us in the program that the church has organized for the young mothers who have dropped out from school due to the maybe abuse, challenges in the home that may cause them to look for a way to survive outside their home. And bringing them together has helped them to accept the reality that a mistake happened, but does not mean they have to stay down there. And we also give them skills and ideas on how they can live independently rather than dependency, as Dr. Black had said. We have given them a way on how they can also support one another due to the psychological issues that they encounter. So they have already organized a group of psychosocial support together, and they come together, share their issues, and support one another. Next.
Excuse me, Virginia, before we continue, allow me to invite our viewers to submit questions to orthodoxkenya18@gmail.com. Again, we welcome your questions. I do have a question here for you. It's in regard to the current situation. Why is it especially important for the church to respond during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Adin. This is one child who was abused last year. It was a touching story, and it is a touching story, that this girl was abused by a neighbor in the absence of the mother when she had gone to take water to the neighbor to earn money to feed her siblings. And the neighbor took advantage of this girl at the age of 13, that this girl was almost dropping out from school. But by God's grace, We noted that the girl had changes in the school, and after investigating, he realized that she was pregnant, and his intention, or she had suicidal ideation. And the parents, when they realized that, were planning to chase her away because they could not bear the shame of a 13-year-old girl becoming pregnant, and yet putting the food on the table is a challenge for the family. And the church took initiative to help or to rescue this girl and took her to a nearby rescue center, whereby she was helped and supported to nurture the pregnancy and delivered before she did sit for her Kenya national exam. That is, she was in grade 8. And when she gave birth at that time, she came back to do the exam, which was not easy for her because the baby was to stay in my office as she is doing her exam. After one paper, she used to come to the office and breastfeed as I babysit the baby. His Eminence has been supportive. Unfortunately, this girl, after 3 months, she was diagnosed with ovarian cysts, which has been a problem to her even today, because after delivery, the rescue center, because of the demand or the high number of teenage pregnancies or abuse in the community, they referred her to go to her family back again to the grandmother, and she could not be able to go to the hospital. The coronavirus also came, that has not left the teenage girls to face the challenges, and so she has not been taken to the hospital. She's still with a problem which require operation. We pray God will help her to get that. And that has made me to go back to the community during the COVID-19, because the young girls has been experiencing challenges as they look for their daily bread. And so during the COVID-19, I have been offering group and individual counseling into groups, and also providing sanitation materials to girls in rural areas in Nyeri, where sometimes I used to be, and also in Nairobi. This was through support from friends, and we pray without God for them. And also, I managed to start also online psychosocial support to prevent the suicidal ideation was with many youth. And we have been able to rescue two girls and one boy who were almost to commit suicide. Next. Next, please. Staffing and mental illness was also a challenge to many during this COVID-19, and a lot has been done by the church to support, and to friends have been supporting these people. And these are girls smiling after getting the sanitation materials and sanitary towels, which was impossible for them. Next. Psychosocial support as a group counseling was, as I have said, it's one of the activities that we did during this COVID-19 to prevent the challenges that were there, as the teenage pregnancies statistics was higher than COVID-19 cases in Kenya during this COVID-19 crisis. Next. His Eminence has tried his best through the support of friends all over the world, including those people in Orthodox Christian mission, to support parents, children, old and needy parents. This is St. Clement, where parents used to come and get meals, a package of food that can be used in their family, and they were very grateful for the support. Next. he moved even to the community to reach the old who could not manage to come to St. Clement's. Next. His heart was full of reaching many, and he was able even to reach to the disabled. And you can see the smile that he was putting to the disabled people who could not afford to put food on their table. Next. Let us pray God to give people understanding of what to change and have courage to make changes. In the darkest moment is the time when people most need the light of the church. And there are two ways of spreading the light: to be the candle or to be the mirror that reflects it. Next. It is not how much you have, it's what you do with what you have. And Elayne Goldman had been one of the visitors in Kenya for the last 3 years and had some experience and reflection of what he experienced in Kenya for the 3 visits she had visited Kenya. Elayne, can you help us to get more on your reflection as you came to visit Kenya? Thank you. Elayne, unmute.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. Yes, I'm going to attempt to give some reflection on my experience in Kenya. But before I do that, I just want to say one thing. To all my friends in Kenya, wherever you are, and I know that some of you are watching, and I know you've been sending Kenya vibes and blessings for our presentation here today. And also to my fellow teammates, I just want you all to know that when I got up to take a shower this morning, I didn't have any hot water. So I want you all to be happy to know that Kenya, you're sending positive vibes, and I appreciate it very much, and I love you all. No hot water. I took a cold shower. Thank you, Virginia, again for your segment on how you and others are reacting to the specific needs of the people you work with. I met Virginia for the first time in 2017. And since then, we've shared common interests in education, helping youth and women set goals for their future in their lives and in the life of the church. We're also hoping that by setting examples of how we rely and live our faith in the Orthodox Church, we'll have some kind of impact as well. I can honestly say that I have witnessed changes in thinking and in actions in response to ideas and lessons that the OCMC team, mission teams, and volunteers have done and have started to do, especially on our month-long mission in 2019. Joel, I actually returned to Nairobi earlier this year to attend my goddaughter's wedding in Uganda. That was in February. I couldn't resist going back to Nairobi to continue our partnership. Since I was so close, and to simply enjoy being with my friends. The main focus of my ministry in Kenya has been specifically on empowering women's ministries of the church. And since I have had a fair amount of experience in building a mission church for the last almost 25 years, which is no longer a mission church, I thought that would be a good way for me to help in my ministry as well. I want to say for a second, thank you very much to St. John the Baptist Greek Orthodox Church for supporting our ministry. I truly appreciate all your love and support for this presentation. Next. I would like to introduce His Eminence Archbishop Makarios of Kenya. You'll be hearing more from him on December the 10th, and I hope you all chime in for that. We will be doing a live interview with the Archbishop. It's taken me a while to really understand what it means about what the Great Commission means, or what do I do with the Great Commission to go forth and be disciples to all nations. We're all called at our baptism to go. Not everyone can go, but I think the lessons learned are of greatest value when serving outside of our own comfort zones. What we do with our experience when we come home is most important. By the way, His Eminence here is pointing to a picture of Sophronios, his spiritual father. When I first met His Eminence, I was moved by his storytelling. I especially love it when His Eminence talks about how it was that he came to Africa and the people in his life that influenced him. He would say, I want to be a musician, so I went to Essex, England to become a musician. He plays the piano, and very well, I might add. As he continues telling his story, after leaving Cyprus, His Eminence said, when I go to Essex, before I do anything else, I need to find a spiritual father. He had a spiritual father in Essex, and I'm not going to say who that person was because I'm not exactly sure, but he was aging. And since he was moving away to become a musician, he said, the first thing I'm going to do is find one, and which he did. And we know that Sophronios now was Saint Sophrony. I knew Saint Sophrony studied under Kandinsky, who said, art should serve the development and refinement of the human soul. I think there was an immediate attraction to him through his love of the arts. His Eminence started talking about these people as if they were his great friends. These people have influenced his ways. These people have influenced his life in ways that become visible in the way he serves the people in Kenya. I love the arts, and I certainly love Orthodoxy. Next. I think one of the most significant takeaways from my experience, particularly in Kenya, is how the indigenous culture is integrated into their spiritual life. Traditions of the Orthodox faith are interwoven within its culture. The drumming and dancing and singing, costumes, and the poetry are all very much a part of expression of the heart. The Eucharistic celebration takes on a new perspective from those of us who are in the Western world. When the gifts are being served, the parish life comes to life with celebration, as it should. But in the world churches, it happens on the solea and in the nave. That's where the dancing and the drumming and the singing begin, and the true celebration begins. The photo here is shown of His Eminence blessing the people with holy water who are celebrating his elevation to an honorary Kikuyu chief in 2017. The Kikuyu tribe is the largest tribe in Kenya and where most of the Orthodox Christians come from. It was by no accident that we arrived in 2017, the day before this important recognition. Everyone present had a role in the celebration. The children, the presbyteras, the youth, the clergy, the men and women, the elders. People came from all surrounding rural churches of Nairobi and beyond to express their gratitude. His Eminence Makaros was given the highest honor of the Kikuyu tribe. They wrapped him in skins and a feathered headdress. Why was this? I thought. At the time, we were all in awe, but as time went on, and particularly over the next several years, it became clear to me that there was something very unique and very special going on in Kenya with regards to the church and living in peace and joy among social circumstances that were unfamiliar and incomprehensible to me at the time. We all have our own poverty and degree of social challenge. In today's world, I think it's the way we interpret how we manage what we have and what we know about living a God-centered life. Meeting people where they are is a key element in the witness of our Orthodox faith and is something that I have seen time and time again in the mission field. Our roots gives merit to who we are as human beings, and embracing God in the church reveals the divine light to all people, whatever culture they belong to. I will talk about the honorary Kikuyu elder in a few minutes and how he influenced my life personally. Next. I love going on the Bishop Safari. You never really knew what to expect or where you were going. However, I was always left with some kind of amazement and thought-provoking situation that just left me in awe. I want to mention here that when it rains, the roads wash out. Oftentimes, only motorcycles can access villages or by foot. That's actually a weather prediction that I had picked up from my cell phone when we were on the road last year. Next. On this safari, on this Bishop Safari, the roads were washed out that day. We had just gone through this area. There was a truck that was overturned. The roads looked like a river. It was slightly intimidating to me. You know, there were people. I remember thinking, His Eminence here. We're traveling in the bus. His Eminence is going to stop the bus, and we're all going to have to start walking. I looked down at my feet and I noticed that I was just wearing a light pair of sandals, and it was really muddy outside. After we drove a little bit further, I noticed at a distance we could faintly see a group of people walking towards us. We all got out of the bus and followed His Eminence across this field, where I could see clearly that they were just women and children in this large group of people. What was so intriguing to me, these beautiful women, they were all traditionally dressed. There were no men, but all of the women were fussing over one another's children. You wouldn't know who belonged to who. Every generation was present, moving from their nomadic home space out there to meet the bishop who gave each of them a sack of masa. These women were moving towards us with anticipation and joy, and the children were laughing and playing. We all met each other in the field with just a few scattered acacia trees. I'm going to let Elayne Karamatskos share more about this Bishop's Masai Safari on December 3rd, when she and her husband Ted will be talking as well. Next. The way to get to these beautiful people is not just by Bishop Safari. The women are everywhere tending to the needs of the Orthodox Church. The expressions here are common. They're often curious. You wouldn't simply know the circumstances of the lives of the people we met by how they express themselves in their work and respond to whatever it is they're dealing with. The women always dress so beautifully, always so ready to prepare a meal or invite you into their home or simply hold hands. Just in the same way we understand the divine liturgy, wherever or whatever language is being spoken, there is a familiar common thread. It's easy to know where we are in divine liturgy, even when it's in Swahili. It's not difficult to understand women either, or it's not easy to listen to them when they're talking, even when you don't understand as much. We all seem to be thinking about the same things, however, the same troubles, the same fears. Is my house clean enough? Will there be enough food? Where is the money coming from to feed my family, often tonight? Are my children safe? Will my children be healed? Is my husband safe? Are the roads safe enough to travel? Will my children follow the church? How can we love God more? How can we embrace change when we have so little resources? We're not so different from each other. Same hugs, same expressions, same tears, same belly laughs. It is truly not how much you have, like Virginia says, but what you do with what you have. Responding to change is slow and easy. Loving God and remembering and holding each other up is very common. Belief and trusting God is universal among the people. I remember being with Joel in Western Kenya, and we were talking to a group of people. They were all youth, actually. They were young. They were overseeing some of the Sunday school. And what was really curious to me is that they were talking about a situation that was really, really difficult. In my world that I come from, I really hadn't encountered anything so perplexing. It was very tough to solve. And I just want to make sure that I communicate to all of you that there are some very serious and very difficult questions and aspects of their lives that we need to understand. We're beginning to build that partnership, however. Next. There's definitely a mutual understanding of openness and willingness among the women's ministries to adapt to a new way of doing things. There is unity, as seen by the presbyteros dancing and cooking a meal for a large group of people. Sometimes it's just plain difficult to put plans or ideas into action because of the level or degree of challenge at the moment. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, the women play a vibrant role in the leadership and willingness to learn. I was able to work with numerous women groups in Western Kenya, particularly to empower them in the churches, such as beautification, young women's support groups, fundraising ideas, hospitality, and supporting the priest in the church through tithing and stewardship. Support comes in many ways. It generally starts with being there, or the best way to start is with prayer. Let me show you how to do it this way, or hands-on is an excellent way for education and training. It comes in many different ways. Next. Virginia talked about this young group of women. They were especially eager to find ways to support each other. In small groups, we were able to share ideas and how to go about leaning on one another. For childcare, for example, while one goes out to look for work or to buy food or to go to the market, really leaning on each other, sharing challenges and brainstorming to find solutions. Virginia is actively working in this ministry to encourage and support these young women. Next. I want to say something about the Orthodox mothers of Kisumu. These women were very open for new ideas and ways to respond to growth or simply maintain the gifts that they already have. What's so interesting is that these women were so receptive to learning about the church and how to start support groups and talk about common problems that they have. They immediately responded to questions and how do we do it? Show me how to do this. Tell me how to do this. I love the note taking. They were very, taking notes and asking questions about church operations and finance and stewardship and Sunday school programs. And common challenges with family and what we all experience between husband and wife and parents and children. These are all very common there. They gave example of their current challenges being financial issues and more immediate concerns about feeding their families or where will the money come from. I felt confident, however, that these women would be able to put some of these ideas into action. The chairwoman of this group presented us with chicken eggs, which is a very high honor, especially for women to be honored in that way. Joel and I were very touched by that. Next. I would like to just talk a little bit about Orthodoxy in Kenya. I was very moved at the time about how the lives of the Orthodox priests and the men and women were so much alike, yet so differently than ours, all living harmoniously, connected to God and their culture and the church. At this time, we were in Western Kenya. We'd been waiting for a couple of weeks to see His Eminence. There was a lot going on at the time, and we had just finished our teaching circuit with the rural mission churches in the West. We headed back to Nairobi. When we got there, we came to find out that Deacon Yerasimos, who was the deacon to the bishop, announced the passing of his father, Father Mavisi. Father Mavisi was a freedom fighter and an original pioneer of the Orthodox Church of Kenya. He was also good friends with His Eminence. Joel and I were able to meet Father Mavisi just days earlier in Western Kenya. Joel and I headed back to Western with His Eminence Simon, Bossi, and Andrew, who are the gracious hosts at the seminary that helped the bishop navigate his busy life. so that he could preside at Father Mavisi's funeral. That was an 8-hour drive the next day. Driving through Nandi tribal region, we saw runners in the streets running in street clothing, open markets, on the villages, mile after mile of lush land, just flourishing with corn or mesa. We drove directly to the family of Father Mavisi. We gave our respects and prepared for the next day of events. The outpouring of love and compassion for the loss of a great man who had only met me for a short time was just an absolutely amazing thing. Joel and I had a chance to meet with him and talk with him. He was undergoing some medical issues, and they were actually trying to raise some money, do some local fundraising for some treatment. There were people from all over this indigenous region mourning, celebrating, dancing, drumming, and singing, listening to family members and dignitaries say goodbye to a friend and a loyal priest for over 40 years, who was buried just outside the door to his family home. I'm telling you this story because it was my experience, the culmination of Orthodoxy in Kenya. The history, the converting, the faith and belief in the resurrection, it was just astounding. This story being told in a land where life is simple and expectations for a good life come with the belief in God through their church, where people of like minds and culture have come together from generation to generation. Next. We were headed back home the next day. His Eminence directed us to wake up early, however, since it was now Sunday and we would go to church. It was raining heavily. The roads were barely passable, winding around what seemed to be a maze with no end. There wasn't much to say, only pray we would arrive safely to wherever it was that we were going. We arrived suddenly, and several men were running down this hill. They were going to push us out of the mud so we could actually park. Joel and the other three, Simon, Vasi, and Andrew, grabbed what they could for divine liturgy and followed His Eminence, running, if you will, into a small tin roof church. I really couldn't see where they were going because I didn't recognize the building that we were moving, where we were going into, was actually a church. It was very small and it had a tin roof. His Eminence was dressed in his full hierarchical vestments within minutes at the east end of the church, where there was merely a small table serving at the altar. The church was brimming with people. The light in the room was not necessarily coming from the sun through the boards, but rather the light on the faces of everyone after they realized that the Yolanda was the celebrant of the Divine Liturgy today. I don't think one single person more could have fit into that room. That was before they realized that they were having guests. I was somewhere in the middle of the room. I'm not sure how I got there, but I was surrounded by small children. Once again, the Eucharist marked the beginning of the celebration, followed by singing and dancing and the biggest smiles I've ever seen. Joel had made his way out of the church from the altar. As the slightly older children followed him, Joel had a great way of making up games off the top of his head and to entertain them and to illustrate a point. He was really, really good at that, and we often had to do that at the spur of the moment. Next. As we headed out of the church after liturgy for a group picture, which was common, a woman grabbed my hand and she pulled me forward outside away from everyone. She was actually walking me away from the crowd. I didn't really know what she was doing or where she was going, but others hovered around. I was walking away from that church, having received Divine Holy Communion, and realized that we were all very much the same. It was exactly the same liturgy that I have known all my life. Same icons, fewer maybe, a bench to sit on, making eye contact with people I seem to know already, and happy to see them, feeling God's love between us. All that kind woman wanted was to have her picture taken with me. She didn't want anything else. She had tears in her eyes. I didn't have anything to give her, just my reflection of her. I began to see myself in the others, and they in me. Experience of divine light and belief is a common thread. We're all connected in our Orthodox faith. Being there to honor and celebrate Christ with them in Nandi, and I have to really emphasize this. It really meant a lot to them, and also to me. And Joel. Next. This was the best part, getting to know the people and becoming friends, building the partnerships and friendships that we would continue. This picture here, sitting at the table, was Thanksgiving dinner almost a year ago, November 26th, with His Eminence and our friends at the seminary. This was a new experience for them since Kenya doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving. Joel and I explained the significance of the US holiday, and they were all so gracious to eat our Thanksgiving meal that we had prepared for them. Whenever I had a chance to be mom or grandmom or friend, I cooked something or made prostada at the seminary kitchen, sit in the kitchen with my friends and have sweet Kenyan tea, connecting with the people. Teaching other women how to make prostada was also a highlight of my trip last year. I still get messages about how the prostada baking is going. I also had an opportunity to trade making chapati for prostada. Next. I'd like to say a word about the honorary Kikuyu elder. This is actually a personal experience for me, and I want to be able to share that with you. The Kikuyu elder has influenced me in a big way. He has demonstrated through actions what it means to be present and to listen, to show compassion, with peace of heart, to be steady, and to take firm yet clear action. He teaches with his heart and soul stemming from truth and belief in God. Through my many trials and tribulations, I have come to understand my faith better and witness the actions of others with challenges far beyond my comprehension about belief and trusting in God. He has influenced me so much that I was inspired to paint a picture of him. If it's the only portrait that I ever do which reveals a compassionate person with faith, it's worth it. I'm not that experienced at painting, but I was able to do that portrait because I now understand a little better about what it may feel like to walk in the shoes of an archbishop, a true missionary, giving all you have from the heart to your people, encounter and accept challenge with peace and calmness, with no expectation for anything else in return, only a reflection of who God created us to be. In closing, I would like to especially thank my husband, Norman, for supporting me because I would not have been able to do this without him. People ask me all the time, do I need to go to Africa to do missions work? We have enough poverty and social problems in the United States, in our own towns, in our own churches. Of course not. Not everyone can go, nor should I say the mission field, particularly in developing third world countries, is not for everyone. I would say, though, that I'm very, very blessed, even at home in the US. The same divine light emulates in my church as it did in Nandi, among my family and my friends, where my gifts and experience can be put to work in mission parishes right here at home. We need each other, and we need role models who inspire us to do God's work according to his divine will. I want to thank all of you. I want to encourage you to visit, if you haven't already seen or visited Dr. Black's presentation a couple of weeks ago, I encourage you to do that, and stay tuned for our upcoming presentations. I want to thank you again for letting me shed a little light on my personal experience and interpretation of my experiences as a OCM mission team member and also as a volunteer, when we went back to Nairobi last year for a month. I hope to return to OCMC mission volunteer as soon as possible. God bless you. Have a very wonderful, blessed Thanksgiving and upcoming nativity. Thank you.
Thank you, Elayne, and thank you, Virginia, and thank you, Joel. Our time is running long here, but it's quite obvious that a response is needed. Whether it's to train the indigenous clergy leaders or mentoring today's child for tomorrow's world or meeting people where they are, a response is needed to bring about change. A response is needed to share our faith. There is one question I did want to get to. It's an interesting question. It's for Virginia. What is the name of the young girl that did not abort her child so we can pray for her?
Thank you, Adi. Her name is Cynthia Mideva, and the little baby is called Blessings. She could not even get a name, but she said that is a blessing to go from God, and so she called her Blessing.
Very nice. We'll remember Cindy and Blessing in our prayers. Thank you for that question. You can still send your questions to orthodoxkenya18@gmail.com, and we will answer them offline. I hope you will join us for part 3 of Orthodox Life in Kenya, the Impact of Missions, with our friend and sister Virginia, along with mission volunteers Ted and Elayne Karamatskos. They will be sharing about the educational and liturgical needs of Kenya. Now, to support the mission efforts in Kenya, please visit www.ocmc.org. Again, these talks will be posted on St. John's YouTube page, and we invite you to share them with others. Thank you to our viewers, and we look forward to having you join us again. Now, please take a moment and pray the prayer for missions. Thank you, and God bless.